No, but if a child is standing there and pouring milk on the floor and looking at you, you don't say, don't do that, because they're going to do it even more. You just continue to talk and ignore it. But everybody, in the beginning, everybody is fanning the flames.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor, where we're all just trying to survive in a rough world.
Karm, you always try to get out of doing the rest of the show. Just got caught on a hot mic saying you don't want to do it. And Steve Cohen, our amazing producer, and
Till
Elisa, his
now
friend,
he's going to quit
this
because
is the first
he can't
time we have a
stand the
live
whole
audience here, and you want to get out of doing the rest of the show.
Joel,
This
I have
is
a
the reason we had to get on the phone with Steve Cohen last night. You threatened to quit the band last night. Steve Cohen called you out. Steve Cohen called you out. He said that you're getting all the credit as the sweet old lady, but you're not doing the work. And I didn't say it. Steve Cohen, who's sitting here right now, said it. And then you said it didn't affect you. 10 minutes later, you call me back. I need to have an emergency meeting with you and Steve. I said, about what? You said, get Steve on the phone, like a diva. I said, about what? You said, get Steve on the phone. I say, about what? Get Steve on the phone. So I conferenced in the great Steve Cohen, and you say to us that we're not giving you the material.
Clever or not clever?
And you're not giving us the material.
I thought it was a brilliant move on my part.
Hey, I know you're 83, Karm, but there is something called Google. I bet you could find Kanye West information on Google.
I am so tired of Kanye West. You have no idea.
What would you like to do a show about, Karm?
The Markells.
You start. We're going to get back to the Markells. So, are you part of the band, or are you leaving Steve and I in the dust? Because Steve's friend Elisa is sitting right next to him. We'll bring her right in. She's Chinese. She brings a whole new demographic.
And
from
young,
Iowa.
And young.
And pretty, attractive, and from Iowa. We bring her right in and attracting a whole new group. Are you staying or are you going?
Don't give me ultimatums. I don't respond well to ultimatums.
Well, listen, Kanye's been all over the news. The guy is an obvious anti-Semite, and there's only one man that knows the true answer, and that is entertainment legend Sam Rubin of KTLA in Los Angeles. He's going to be on the main schmooze coming right up.
Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main schmooze.
So, Karm, when this Kanye news first broke, I actually made you get out of your nightgown on a Sunday night, hop in front of the camera, because I've now built a studio in our house.
Naked?
Thank God, no. Thank God, no. And we quizzed you as a Holocaust survivor about your thoughts about who we were calling Ye at the time, but I've since found out it's Ye, and it makes sense for Kanye. And you gave me an answer which took me by surprise because, in essence, you said that you thought he was just bipolar.
Never. I never said that.
What did you say?
Never said that.
I apologize. What did you say?
I think, as I said before, people have to watch. It's 15 minutes, and then they will see what I said. But I never use the excuse that he's sick or mentally ill or bipolar. Never.
Great tease, Karm. You got to go to our YouTube channel, Surviving the Survivor, and listen to Karm's take on Ye when this first happened. But basically, in a nutshell, I was expecting your usual tirade of expletives that you don't share on the show, but that you do in real life, and you were very calm about it. Long story short, today we've got the man who can break all this down, and he's not just any man. He is an icon in the business, Sam Rubin. I stole his bio right out of Wikipedia, so I hope it is current. He's a little bit older than me. I won't give his date of birth, but it just means he's mature. And he is obviously an American journalist. He works for the KTLA Morning News. He works for TV in Australia. He's a correspondent for Reels Production. And by the way, remember Bob Richbloom?
Yeah, I love Bob Richbloom.
Did you? I know Bob Richbloom. May he rest in peace. He helped launch Reels. I don't know if you know that.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's the great Sam. How are you? I'm going to just say hello instead of all the other crap. How are you?
Very well. I tell you what, I'm happy that you brought up his name because I have such fond feelings about Bob Richbloom. And he was the first person, as we talk about media and this more specifically, who said to me, you know what, printed newspapers are never going to make it. And I said, that's so disappointing to hear. And given his expertise, he made that prediction much, much earlier than anyone else. And sad to say, he was right. So,
you know what's crazy? Back in, not to date myself, but I was one of the first producers ever hired by MSNBC in the mid-90s. In 1999, Bob Richbloom, what are you shaking your head for?
Because nobody cares about what happened in 1999.
So in 1999, Bob Richbloom asked me to go work for him. And back then, during the dot-com bubble of the late 90s, he was trying to do streaming financial news. And it goes to Sam's point right now that Bob was a bit of a visionary. He saw streaming news, but it was ahead of its time in 1999. Just to wrap up on Sam's bio here real quick, Karm. He's reported on the entertainment industry for over 20 years, probably more than that. He's interviewed everyone from Tom Hanks, Mel Gibson, Jeff Bridges, Halle Berry, Samuel Jackson, Larry King, all these guys. He's also co-authored books on Jacqueline Onassis and Mia Farrow, so there's no one that knows Hollywood better than Sam Rubin. Sam, first question, who's the biggest pain in the ass to interview?
That's the question I'm often asked, and the standard answer is...
Let me guess, Kanye.
The standard answer is Tommy Lee Jones, who doesn't suffer fools very well. And when stars sit in these, the typical circumstance, they're in a hotel room and every 10 minutes another person walks in. That's a very trying circumstance for anybody. But I've seen people leave his room crying because if he thinks the question's dumb or he knows you haven't seen the movie, he'll call you out on it. So he still wins that prize. But Kanye is certainly in the running now. And just one thing I wanted to say briefly before we dive into this, I'm very happy to be on with you and your mother. My mother was born in Bremen, Germany. And her family was much more German than Jewish. But Kristallnacht was a real turning point for her and her parents. And so a family of five, all, pretty late, but successfully made their way to America. My mom was in England for 2 years. And I could perhaps send this to you after our conversation, but my mom was always incredibly cheerful and never embittered by what, certainly would be an embittering experience. And it was interesting for me later in life to go to Bremen myself and see that incredibly pleasant German town. There's a photo of my mother as an older woman returning to the street that she lived on, which we have paired with a photo of her when she was 7 or 8 on that same pleasant street with a giant swastika flag behind her as they started to take over there. But in any event, it is that perspective. And there's a photo of my mother in the Holocaust Museum here in Los Angeles. But she had a lucky and happy life in America and had a very, very upbeat personality. And one thing that so incensed me about this is how much I know it would have upset her. So that's when Kanye half-heartedly talks about, oh, I want to apologize for people, I've hurt. I've been hurt too. It's like, not comparable, I think, to the hurt that his remarks would have made other people.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up for 2 reasons. Number one, my mother, although she yells at me and calls me names, is probably one of the most positive people I know, despite what she's been through. And we were just talking about going back to visit her hometown, which is on the border of Yugoslavia and Hungary, which hopefully we'll do one day. Your mother is no longer with us, Sam? Or?
Yeah, my mother passed away a couple of years ago, actually on a trip to Japan. And she was very reticent. She had friends who took advantage of, your mother might have a better understanding than I do, of what I understand is this sort of German government offer to effectively vacation or visit in Germany. That's, been offered to survivors. My mother's had friends who've done it several times, and she never wanted to do it. Her thought was she would never go back. And then she decided to go back. And I think she was happy that she did. But yeah.
They offered it to people who were born in Germany.
Right.
And since I was born, in a small town on the border of Hungary and now Serbia, I had to.
You were back there not that long ago, right?
Yeah, I graduated from high school. I was away only for a very short time. But it was so long ago when I was 5. Now I'm 83.
But did you go to your 50th high school reunion?
Yes, I did.
In Subotica,
yes.
In Yugoslavia. Wow. Karm, you were making fun of me for talking about 1999. So forget your high school reunion and let's move on to Kanye here. Let me set the table real quick. We've got some breaking news coming out of the Kanye world. He has now apparently hired Johnny Depp's attorney, Camille Vasquez, to handle some of the issues going on with his businesses. And concurrent with that, we find out that Balenciaga, Karm, you familiar with Balenciaga?
Yes.
There's not a woman in Miami without a Balenciaga bag. They have officially cut ties with Kanye West. So now there is a ripple effect going on here. His comments have consequences. It all started earlier in the month at a Paris Fashion Week. Now Ye, was Kanye. He was standing next to Candace Owens, who I happen to have met a few months ago, who's drop dead stunningly beautiful in person, but rubs people the wrong way. They both wore these long sleeve T-shirts that said "White Lives Matter," right? So, Sam, going back to that, that was kind of the trigger point for this whole fiasco that Ye finds himself in now, right?
Right. So this started sort of a series of a guy who's always had media attention, but increased media attention, did a big interview with Tucker Carlson, which was an edited interview. And apparently his anti-Semitic remarks during that interview did not make their way on the air. But then, he did some other web thing, which ultimately the producers decided not to air. But what really amplified this was his own tweet, and I'll paraphrase it. You likely have it in front of you, that he was a little sleepy, but when he wakes up, he was going to go DEFCON 3 or 5 on Jewish people, which is just a startling thing to say. And of course, he meant to say DEF con in reference to the military term, and said Death Con, which in some ways is even worse. But it was just such an incredible unmasking. And, I think likely we all harbor our own prejudices or feelings we wish we didn't harbor. But to just be so, this is a phrase that I think has become very common now, to say the quiet part out loud. And that's exactly what he did. And then this is another phrase that people use a lot in 2022. He proceeded to double down on it. An interview with Chris Cuomo, an interview with Piers Morgan, and now he's reaping the consequences of this. And then one thing, and your mom pointed it out, well, he's mentally ill, or oh, he's not well, and people are sort of making these kind of excuses. I don't think he's well, but I think he is very clear about what he's saying, and it's not like he's saying it in a delusional fashion or something. And it's just horrible. And then one other thing that really resonated with me is Sarah Silverman. And I'm literally picking out a group out of thin air, but if we decided collectively, or a group decided to pick on Eskimos, and I sent out a tweet saying, death to all Eskimos, you would get outrage from so many quarters. And the fact that Kanye does this, and Sarah Silverman and very few others speak out about it, is also startling. And that silence is unnerving and hurtful. And so I did a thing on our television show because I just couldn't not do it. I just felt absolutely compelled to do it. And I thought and hoped there'd be sort of more voices than my own, but there have not been very many. Balenciaga voting with their checkbook, appropriately so, and saying, we don't want to be in business with you. Adidas says their deal with Kanye is under review. Kanye apparently takes great pride in his business acumen and financial success. It'll be interesting to see what happens if these significant sources of income dry up.
So, Sam, I host this with my lovely 83-year-old mother, Carmela, who is a Holocaust survivor. What do you think your mother would have said to you about this?
My mother, and maybe this is like your mother as well, these are superficial adjectives, but they're true. Always bright, always sunny, always looking for the good in people. I think she would say, it's funny, it's the only German word I know. She would say Nishtach, which is like a sharp no. And she would say Nishtach, and she would say he's an idiot, or this is terrible. I think this would pierce that overall bright, sunny quality she has. I think it's really would be scary.
Karm, Sam said something interesting. People are now starting to say the quiet part out loud, and there's no...
I know. I knew where you're going with it. You want to say that I had
no ulterior motive. Where am I going with this?
Because I now say what other people think.
Well, yes, that happens with age, I think.
That's right.
You say things, but I mean, have you had time now since we spoke? I think it was last Sunday. Has your view or views on Kanye and what he's doing changed? What are your thoughts on it right now?
I agree with you that Kanye is irrelevant at this point. I think what's relevant is how the rest of the chattering world, responding to this, how the commentators don't condemn it, they go silent, and that is the part that's dangerous.
Well, without sounding stereotypical myself, I mean, there is a powerful Jewish voice in Hollywood.
You are a racist,
and we are not hearing as much as we should. Sarah Silverman, I know, spoke out. I think Ari Emanuel from Endeavor, he spoke out and said, look, we need to cut ties. Is that right, Sam?
Yeah, he wrote an article for the Financial Times, and just an interesting Ari Emanuel sidebar. He has done this once before with Mel Gibson. Then Mel Gibson, after a period of time, and Mel Gibson has done this with a lot of people, myself included, made personal amends, spoke with Ari directly. And apparently that was enough to convince him that Mel Gibson was no longer the pariah that he felt he should be, and has apparently actually worked with him subsequently. But basically, Ari Emanuel, who I think has a big voice, said what's problematic here is that Kanye has this very large audience comprised mostly of young people. And so to spew this stuff where some, 14 or 15-year-old who doesn't really understand the history and doesn't, understand the overall context of this, I think is damaging and dangerous.
See, Carmela always blows it off as, it's Kanye's, whatever, he's bipolar, whatever the excuses are, and it's not a big deal. But
I never said that.
But you just said it. You just said that.
No, I just said
you're more concerned about what the commentators in the
media. Yes, because Kanye already said what he said, and I don't blame it on his bipolar or any other psychological. I hold him fully responsible.
Do you think he's an anti-Semite? Yes. Or no?
And I said that 15 minutes after it came out when you interviewed me.
Usually you get upset. You don't seem angry. Like I usually see the anger. Are you angry?
No, why? I don't get angry. I expect it, as I said during those 15 minutes.
What do you think should happen to Kanye right now?
Right now?
Do you think that,
I said that I wish I plead with people to listen to that 15-minute thing that I said right after he came out with the with that threat to you people. You people
the
is
Jewish people. He said the
Jewish people. It's a trigger word.
The DEFCON.
Yeah.
She said DEFCON. But
because we are such a varied group. We are liberal and conservative and educated and not educated, cheats and honorable, and lumped us all together like we are some kind of a Play-Doh thing that you lump together.
But Sam, on Twitter, I believe he has over 32 million followers. I don't know what he has on Insta. I mean, what kind of influence and reach is that in today's world?
Well, may I say something?
I mean, sure, please. Go ahead.
No, you say it first.
Karm, you go first. You're the Holocaust survivor.
No, but like you already pointed out that it's the youth that is picking it up. And the dangerous thing is that the youth doesn't know the history of this and where it can lead and how dangerous it was and how the genocide happened, and that they don't know this. Out of the 32 million, I wonder how many know this. But I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to cut off our guests, especially such an illustrious guest as you. So please tell me what you were thinking.
Well, Sam, my question to you is, what kind of influence does he have? I mean, 32 million people is no small number, and that's just on Twitter.
Right. So I'll give you two answers to that. The one is numerically, he has a lot of influence, presumably. He reaches a huge number of people. And then the corollary to that is sometimes the weight of that influence for him or anyone else who reaches a huge number of people is exaggerated. We all, are on Twitter. How many tweets have you read in the last 2 days that, you could repeat to me now or that have meant anything to you? So I think it's all kind of a big blather, but it is, it is among many things, but it's entirely irresponsible to go after a group of people and share your ire with whatever it is, 32 million other people.
In a certain way, we are not discriminated against. I tell you why. He's angry, and so many people in so many areas. He's angry at his ex-wife. He's angry at his ex-mother-in-law. He's angry at the Kushners. He's angry at B.B. Combs or whatever.
P. Diddy.
P. Diddy.
I don't know what. Well, I was just getting to Diddy, by the way. So right after this whole incident happened at this Paris Fashion Week, apparently Diddy, formerly Puff Daddy, he tried to intervene apparently, and apparently sent Kanye a text message, and then Ye turned it around and said that Diddy was put up to it by quote unquote the Jewish people. So he kind of just poured salt. He's doubling down at that point, right, Sam?
Well, this whole idea, all these tropes, that the Jews control all of show business, and that, certain entertainers, black entertainers and other entertainers are only doing the Jews' bidding. And just this, my joke is if Jews really controlled show business, I'd be doing a lot better. I just don't think that's anybody's lived experience.
And another interesting aspect of all this is he then also took to Twitter with his 32 million followers, put a photo of himself and Mark Zuckerberg singing karaoke, and basically said, how are you going to kick me off of Instagram, even though he put this onto Twitter. And apparently his account was disabled. It has not been fully suspended. Should it be, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's this ongoing debate about, cancellation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And where do you draw the line and all, and I'm sympathetic with all that. And then just as a sidebar, this Elon Musk purchase of Twitter, where he's apparently going to fire 3/4 of the staff, making Twitter more of a Wild West show because there won't be any, moderation or curation. I think that I imagine, and again, I'm pulling something out of thin air, if I write a long, detailed tweet about my intention to kill some political leader, that they would kick me off and that they would, a policeman would knock on my door. I mean, I kind of hope that's what would happen. so I think this stuff is bad, and I think he should not be brought back. And maybe there's some punishment period and then some probationary period, and maybe it doesn't have to be for the rest of his life. But I think he has zero awareness and cares zero about the fear he's instilled in people and the harm that he's caused.
What do you think is really at play here? I was just having this conversation with someone outside. Is it a money issue where he feels like he's giving his handlers, his agents, 10% here, 10% there? Is it just an anger issue, a hatred issue? What do you think is really at the core here?
One thing that is so interesting, and I suspect a lot of people are driven by ego and by vanity. He apparently vehemently objects to the description of him as the rapper Ye or the rapper Kanye West. Why don't they call me why don't they call me a billionaire? Why don't they call me the richest African American who's ever been? Why don't they call me this? Why don't they call me that? Who cares what they call you? You know if those things are true. So I don't know why that is part of it. And I think he very much lumps together. And again, I'm making this up, but if his accountant is named Schwartz and his banker is named Mendelbaum, and they're telling him things he doesn't want to hear, well, it's those damn Jews who control all the money. So it's just it's small and petty and really dangerous. And the other thing is, if anybody went after him or anyone else on the basis of pigmentation, that would be it. That's immediately, cancelable. And it's just odd to me that this, which I would deem as an absolutely equivalent form of prejudice, merits very little condemnation, although we're seeing over time it's a little bit more. More people are mad at James Corden being mean to this restaurant waitstaff than they're mad at Kanye West. But maybe they have higher expectations of James Corden.
That's a great point. You know who James Corden is, Karm? He hosts a late night talk show, and he was rude to someone and people got upset at a restaurant. But Karm.
No, but I said it.
You said what?
I said it in those famous 15
Karm,
minutes.
I've never seen you plug something. I love this. This could go viral. I mean,
no, because the more I think about it, I wouldn't change that in 15-minute interview. Because one of the things I said is...
To be honest, I don't remember a thing you said, but go on. I was dealing with a lot
brilliant.
I was dealing with a lot of tech issues that night. But
no, but what I said is that if some child would seek so much negative feedback, because he's getting some negative feedback, even if it's not giant, he still gets some negative feedback. He wants negative feedback, and the way you treat children when they want negative feedback, you extinguish it. What does it mean? You just don't respond. Like they are. You
don't fan the flames.
No, but if a child is standing there and pouring milk on the floor and looking at you, you don't say, don't do that, because they're going to do it even more. You just continue to talk and ignore it. And after a while, but everybody, in the beginning, everybody is fanning the flames, because what's his name? Cuomo likes to increase his numbers. Good luck.
By the way, Cuomo's big takeaway, and I'm friends with Chris, he was upset that Ye sat down and did the interview with Tucker, but he was upset that Ye did the interview with Chris from the back seat of a moving vehicle. And that was my next point, Sam. And Karm, I forgot to ask you your question, which I will, but what's up with these so-called journalists? I mean, I know Tucker, we can't really call him that, but there was literally no pushback from Tucker, who said something. I have a quote here. Tucker responded by saying, yeah, Kanye, very famous people can't have free speech. And he says, Kanye says to Tucker, I just think it was to make money. Wait, that I'm lost in my own notes here. But the point is, Tucker didn't push back at all. Should he have? And should Chris have pushed back harder?
Tucker is utterly complicit in a variety of negative things. And so you can just add anti-Semitism to the list of anti-democracy, anti-Ukraine, etc. So
I have a friend who says Tucker is my favorite anti-Semite.
Okay, that may be. He's very. These are two different things. I think he's a decidedly bad person. He's a very capable broadcaster, and is good at the machinations of doing television. But I mean, no, there's been again, if going back to our Eskimo friends, if anybody said the same thing that he said about another group, I think you would hear so much more. And it is disappointing that the journalism community, I think of the pushback, Cuomo tried the hardest, did the best job, but then, sort of veered into, I think, Kanye, you're off your meds. And, had a big discussion about antidepressants. I don't know why we're trying to make excuses for him.
Karm,
I have a suggestion.
Go for it.
He always says, I am just the diva, he's the producer. But as a diva today, I have a suggestion. Let's drop Kanye.
Why?
Because we are giving him too much time. I have a very important question that doesn't relate.
Karm, you were plugging your thing, and now you're saying drop the subject.
Well, I finished. I finished. I have a very important question.
Ask your question if it's that
important. You wrote a book that is about Jackie Onassis, and you wrote a book about Mia Farrow. Why did you pick these two women? And I'll have follow-up questions.
We're not done with Ye yet, but
yes,
go ahead,
we are.
Hey, thank you for asking. I wrote these books quite some time ago, and you might be familiar with Harlequin romances, where a publisher is looking for X number of titles. So when I wrote these, this is St. Martin's Press, they were just looking for celebrity biographies, and they had a list of names of the people they were interested in. And so those were the two best names on their list. And then that's really what prompted it. And of course, my conclusion in the Mia Farrow book was that she and Woody Allen had found the perfect partnership with one another. So that shows
you mean at that point in their lives?
Right. That shows you how old that book is.
Yeah.
So, Karm, I let you get off track for a minute, but we're going back to Kanye right away.
We need to get off for a minute.
So, there's this thing called the Drink Champs podcast, which I'd never heard of, but Ye did it, so it's obviously big. And in that podcast where they drink, hence the title Drink Champs, which, Karm, we could change this to Surviving the Survivor Drinkathon. That might not be a bad idea for you and I to start drinking on this show. Ye said, I'm jealous of the Jewish community. He says this an hour and a half into the 3.5 hour podcast, and then says, I'm jealous of the way Jewish people do business. Karm, is he just jealous? Do you buy that?
Well, I have another friend who believes that it's all jealousy.
Him or anti-Semitism?
Anti-Semitism.
Sam, how about you? Do you believe it's a money issue? I think I asked you that earlier, but
I mean, again, in these very stereotypical, superficial ways, am I envious of people from Kenya because they're such great runners? I actually admire people from Kenya because they're such great runners. So I think he's just, it's the backhanded compliment.
You know what's crazy? Sam says that. I'm like, okay, we all just got canceled because he's making this comparison, but it's true. I mean, in this day and age, you can't joke about certain things. It's just a way. It's a wokeism. It's it's happened to our society, but it doesn't seem to have the same, cause and effect when you flip it onto a person like Kanye. Karm, you're raising your hand. It's your show.
Yeah.
You don't need to raise your hand.
The other day I was looking through, maybe it was TikTok or something like that, and there was a comedian on, and he said the word CUNT.
Yes.
And they said that you cannot say that word. He said the word.
Is he British? It's a British curse.
The Brits use it.
Wait 1 second. And then said, it's like using the N-word. Yeah. And he said, wait a minute. The N-word you cannot even say. So they are not equivalent. This is a word that you can say.
By the way, Karm, the next time you want to bring that up, us young kids refer to it as "see you next Tuesday." That's how you say that word. You don't actually spell it out because now we're going to get canceled, even though there's no. So another couple of interesting things. So you suggested he's angry at Kim Kardashian, and he went on in the same drunk podcast interview and said Jewish Zionists were behind a recent disclosure by his former wife about Pete Davidson and apparently Kim Kardashian having sex by the fireplace to honor their grandmother. This came out somehow. Sam can maybe explain this. And Kanye said it's Jewish Zionists about that life that's telling this Christian woman that has 4 black children to put that out as a message in the media. That's really out there, Sam. That's pretty crazy.
That's super out there, and I can't attempt to analyze it, and I won't. But, And again, I feel no sympathy for him. I suppose it's embarrassing that your wife divorces you and then very openly cavorts with a man who's younger than you, who is rumored to have superior prowess to you. And that was all, fought out very publicly. But A doesn't excuse Z. So
correct. Do you know who Pete Davidson is? He's the comic.
Yes, I know. I know his father was killed in 9/11.
They say he's well endowed beyond any measure.
And he's half Jewish, I think.
Oh, wow. Even more impressive.
Did you, right?
Well, they said that Sam Rubin, they said that Milton Berle was the most impressive.
I was just going to bring up Milton Berle. There's a classic Milton Berle. That's so funny that you say that. And I've met Milton Berle many times, but there's a great. It's just one of these stories, and it may or may not be true, but somebody tells it that he was a PA at Saturday Night Live during sort of the Sodom and Gomorrah period of Saturday Night Live, where everyone is cavorting with everyone else. And he is hoping he's got his eye on another female intern. And his job is to babysit Milton Berle. And he spends the whole week with Milton Berle. And then just before the show's about to start, Milton Berle says, "You're the only person I've spent this much time with who's never asked to see it." Because people, want to see it. And he said, okay, if you want to show it to me, I'll see it. And so as Milton Berle unspools, the girl he's interested in knocks on the door and opens it, 10 minutes, and sort of witnesses this scene. And then he said it destroyed any potential he had for a relationship with her.
When I get home tonight, I'm getting on one of those companies where you can make shirts. I get a picture of Milton Berle, and it's going to say "My hero." That's all. It just gave me the idea. I'm going to sell 10 million of these shirts,
but not because of the size. It's because of the way he was very funny.
He's Karm. The other part doesn't hurt. On to the next thing here, and then we'll get off of Kanye in a minute. 2 other things I wanted to bring up. 3 other things I wanted to bring up real quickly. So, George Floyd. We all know about George Floyd. So Kanye came out and attacked George Floyd, whose family is now suing Kanye for, I believe, $250 million. Kanye said that, quote, they hit him with the fentanyl. If you look, the guy's knee wasn't even on his neck like that, Kanye says about George. Karm, you've got your hand in the air again. So he's attacking his own people as well. What did you make of that?
I want to talk about something else.
Karm, you're on. Sam, what do you make of that?
I mean, and this actually references your friend Candace Owens and a documentary that she apparently made. I mean, this just all seems like just completely nutter stuff. And again, it serves the narrative, but I think the wrong narrative. I think that George Floyd was quite obviously a victim of police brutality and was murdered.
But Candace Owens is confusing to me. I'm not talking about Kanye. I'm talking about Candace. Is she also a certified anti-Semite, or she's an anti-Semite in training, or what is she?
Well,
Sam?
She's a media personality, and I would think, I mean, it's the short answer is I don't know, but she's a media personality who apparently, Kanye has indicated an admiration and affection for. She has not denounced his remarks as she or anyone else should. So maybe, and again, I'm not an expert, maybe one in training would probably be my suggestion.
Okay.
So a couple of interesting things just to point out. The ADL, Anti-Defamation League, came out and says that Ye's comments espouse anti-Semitic tropes about Jewish intimidation, power, and control. Howard Stern, one Jew that is speaking out, he said that the whole thing was, quote unquote, so depressing, adding, Kanye used to be fun crazy. Now he's like Hitler. And then Howard Stern also pointed out that Jews only make up about 2.4% of the population, and said, I don't think that they're your problem, Kanye. But us being 2.4% of the population has never stopped anti-Semites before, right, Karm?
You don't have to have 0% of the population in countries where they show that they didn't even see a Jew.
And then Jon Stewart came out and said it's mind-blowing how easily anti-Semitic comments flow from people's mouths. But we should be hearing from every Jewish person. We should be hearing from Adam Sandler. We should be hearing from Jerry Seinfeld, Larry David. The list goes on.
No. We should hear about from every Gentile, not from every Jew.
Sam, yes, what were you going to say?
Your mother is exactly right. Your mother is correct. We should hear from every Gentile, not from every Jew. Exactly right.
Mothers are always right. Karm, I stand corrected. Sam, does Ye run for president, and does he win? Because he's claiming that he still might.
Answer is, the easy answer, he does not win. He certainly does not win. If he runs, I think he sort of pseudo ran last time for 5 minutes. I think this is a big setback for him, as it should be. And until he changes his ways, renounces what he said, I think he's going to be in this mire and this pit of his own making. So no, I think his political options are deeply limited.
He's self-destructing, guys. But in the meantime, he's doing a lot of harm to the Jews.
It's easier to self-destruct when you're a billionaire. But yeah, no, he is.
No, it's not easier.
Apparently, he's just like not even living in a home. Like, these people are surprisingly miserable human beings. Sam has been super generous. I just want to go over very quickly our friend Harvey Weinstein. He's already serving a 23-year sentence after a 2020 conviction, but now a jury of 9 men and 3 women were seated just this past Thursday. Is he going to get convicted here once again, Sam?
Well, what's interesting here, it's really fascinating, is these are usually quote-unquote Jane Doe cases where the victims are not identified. One of the victims has been identified, and it's the wife of our current governor, Gavin Newsom, who may well run for president to bring things full circle. So the fact that she is willing to be very upfront about her accusations and lend her name to them, and I find her quite credible. And then you have 3 other women as well. And then there's another case to be tried in London. I think that even though Harvey Weinstein has an opportunity to appeal his New York convictions, I think it is fairly, if not certain, close to certain, that he spends the rest of his life in jail. And then the only thing that people are wondering about is, how did he get away with it for so long? And, and I say this with a touch of guilt. He used to come on our show all the time to, promote the latest movie or whatever. And this is where hindsight is 2020. I had always heard that, he was quote unquote a skirt chaser. But to me, there's a huge distinction between being a skirt chaser and, someone who commits sexual assault or is a rapist. So that's been a big lesson for me and a huge number of other people.
How do you describe his fall from power / grace? I mean, is this one of the biggest collapses in Hollywood history?
Well, I think the bigger one actually is Les Moonves from CBS. Because one thing that I think happens, and I think you can sort of trade this arc with Bill O'Reilly, Harvey, and not Moonves, but Bill O'Reilly and Harvey for sure. it's very hard when the people are at the peak of their power and nothing seems to happen. And then other circumstances diminish them a little bit. And just when they're a little bit vulnerable, boom, it all comes out. There's another analogy. It doesn't involve subjects quite as serious. The Golden Globes are the same way. Golden Globes were, this huge award show. Who knew that everybody hated the Hollywood Foreign Press Association? And the minute the Golden Globes became under some scrutiny, it's like, oh, wait, everybody hates them. And, their ceremony has suffered mightily.
Sam, I'm not sure if you realize this, but Hollywood is a dysfunctional place because we've also got Danny Masterson. He's on trial for 3 counts of forcible rape that could send him to prison for 45 years to life. He's from that 70s show. His trial began on Tuesday in Hollywood. Karm, do you know who he is? I just told you. He was on that 70s show. Do you think he goes down?
Yeah, I think he goes down. And then the thing that's interesting there is what is the degree of culpability of Scientology? And did they protect him? His victims were also Scientologists. Were they encouraged to not report these crimes? That kind of thing.
Karm, what do you think of the Church of Scientology?
It's very scientific.
It's very good answer, Karm. Last thing here, we've got Kevin Spacey. He was just exonerated in a civil suit where a guy named Anthony Rapp was suing him for, I think, $40 million, saying that Kevin Spacey did untoward sexually explicit things to him. Were you surprised by that, Sam, that Kevin got off on the civil side?
It was very interesting. And of course, I wasn't in the courtroom, but they said that Kevin Spacey, who is this very accomplished and very good actor, gave this unbelievable performance, that he cried on the stand. And that, I'm paraphrasing. I wasn't there, but he essentially said, I might be guilty of X, Y, and Z, but I'm not guilty of this. And apparently convincing to a jury, Anthony Rapp, who was really one of the first voices in what I think has been successfully bringing down Kevin Spacey, said that, while he was disappointed with the verdict, he was, which is a brave thing to do, to bring these charges, bringing his own name to it. I'm sure it doesn't help his career in any way. The Kevin Spacey one, because I always think, and maybe your mom has some insights into this kind of thing, I always think that talent and accomplishment are these sort of elixirs. And, if you're really talented, that can stave off a lot of things. But as we've seen with Kevin Spacey, seen with Kanye, amongst others, it is not the elixir that I thought it was.
Karm, as all roads do, often they lead back to me. I know you won't believe this, but in the early 2000s, I actually ended up pumping gas next to Kevin Spacey at an LA gas station, and he gave me, I did not know he was even gay at that time, and I told my friend, he was looking me up and down. And look, now 2022, and all this is going on.
And he's sorry he wasn't the one who was suing him.
It was a big honor. Before we say goodbye, Karm, we say this on Yom Kippur, from dust we come to dust we go. What's the deal with all these guys in LA, Hollywood, business types that take themselves so seriously, the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, that they just allow their egos and their power to overtake them, not realizing that they're just little specks on this planet? What's going on psychologically?
Well, it has been like that since the antiquity and before, and
since the dawn of man.
A lot of power gives you like a green light to proceed.
Sam, have you been able to figure this out? I mean, we're all just little nothings in this universe. So why do these Hollywood egos run amok?
I don't know, because I feel very content where I am, and sure, it would be nice to have a private jet. It would be nice to, go to Mauritius every other weekend, but I don't really have an aspiration for more. And what I think, and I'll just use the word gluttony, sure, wouldn't it be amazing to have a romantic relationship with some beautiful starlet? Well, yeah, if they were willing and interested, and you weren't forcing them into it. But I don't get it. It's hard to explain. I don't understand why there's this degree of gluttony, which I think is not limited to show business, by the way.
But yeah, right. There was window of a few years when there was a hunt. What was it? Me Too generation. Me
Too.
And there was like an accelerated hunt for these men in power, and of course nobody's an angel.
Karm, I remember asking you right at the height of that, because I was working at Fox News when that happened. By the way, Bill O'Reilly is a horrible human being, and the people who worked with him called him Blackheart. Horrendous human being, a horrible human being. But I digress.
I worked with him in Inside Edition for about 5 seconds, equally horrible there. But he wrote a very, Newsweek used to have that My Turn column. And this is years ago, way before the Fox News stuff. He wrote a column, what if you go to your high school reunion and you've done better than everybody else? And how awkward that was for him.
Yeah, what a difficult life. He's just a terrible person. But anyway, I remember asking you during the height of the Me Too movement about it, and you just blew it off and said, men will be men. Now they can't grab someone's ass at work anymore. That's what you said to me.
Well, that's what they do, and they have a lot of power.
Oh, that's what they do.
And those few years, they got Charlie Rose, who I like to watch.
They got Harvey Weinstein. They got Bill O'Reilly. They got Roger Ailes. They got Eric Bowling. The list goes on.
No,
and on
they
and
got.
Sam would know more. They did. I'll tell you who they didn't get. Sam Rubin. They did not get Sam Rubin because he's a gentleman and a scholar.
No, he has a beautiful wife.
And he has a beautiful wife. Sam, my mother called and said, "Have you seen a picture of Sam Rubin's wife?" I said, "No. Why? I'm happily married. Why would I even look?" She said, "Oh, I Googled it because you said I don't do enough research." So now she's Googling our guests' wives, and she was very impressed with yours. So send her our love.
And judging by the...
Oh, I'm sorry. Mom, do you play Mahjong?
No Mahjong for Karm.
Okay. My wife is relatively young, but she's deeply into Mahjong. And she's actually...
Well, I have to tell you a Mahjong story.
Your mom would have liked that, Sam.
I tell you this story. A few years ago, when we were summers in New Jersey, since the COVID, we got stuck here in Miami. But when we were in New Jersey, the clubhouse of the place where we lived gave Mahjong introductory lessons for the new group of people. And I said to my friend, let's go and take Mahjong lessons because otherwise we are not certified Jews.
There you go. So he is Sam Rubin, host of KTLA Morning News. He is an entertainment reporting legend in Hollywood. By the way, I don't believe Mel Gibson has made amends. The guy's still an anti-Semite in my book. But anyway, how was Larry King, by the way? Good guy?
Perfectly nice guy. He had a very volatile relationship. I think it was wife number 7 or number 8, who was a former entertainment reporter who met him at a junket. A lot of the women who do this job are quite good looking, and end up. John Cryer is married to one. There's many other examples. I
feel like Larry King would have been jealous of Milton Berle, but that's just my. Hey, Sam.
He didn't need that, Joel. He had enough wives.
Ed Koch used to ask, "How am I doing? What do you think of this podcast with me and Karm? Unusual?"
I think it's a great idea because I think what happens, I think the fastest growing demographic is what I would call the young old. So it's people who chronologically are over X age, but are still spirited and youthful. And your mom absolutely embodies that. So I think it's great that you're doing it.
We just had last week we had Retirement House on. They've got over 4 million followers on TikTok. They're all elderly Hollywood actors, and the only people bigger than them on TikTok are old gays, bunch of old gay guys in Palm Springs with 8 million followers. But Sam, we got to run. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. We'll be right back with the news schmooze.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
What do you think of Sam?
I think he's a very talented person. That's why he's the best entertainment reporter in
He has
LA.
such a sweet way about him.
He reminds me, you know who he reminds me of?
Yeah.
they do different jobs in different ends of the country, but the guy who is actually from Livingston and
Bruce Beck.
Yes.
Bruce Beck. Yeah, very, very similar demeanors, actually. Very similar demeanors. Whatever happened, do you remember the guy in New York? Steve Cohen will know the answer. I think he's dead, may he rest in peace. But do you remember Gene Shalit? He had the crazy hair and a big...
Yes, he reviewed movies.
Reviewed movies. Is he dead, Steve Cohen? I think he's dead.
He's still dead?
No.
Still dead?
Gene Shalit, right? But anyway, so Karm, we have to do the news schmooze here because our audience lives for this. The first story, I actually picked some real stories today. Vladimir Putin, have you heard of him?
All right, go ahead.
He says apparently he tried to actually detonate a nuke, but his plans were sabotaged. An insider in the Kremlin says that they were sabotaging his plans to use atomic weapons. In recent days, there have been a series of NOTAM messages, notice to air missions, and linked navigation warnings indicating test or live firing drills of nuclear weapons. Are you worried about this? Because we all learned about mutual assured destruction. Are you worried that we kill ourselves?
No. I only worry about Kanye West, and that's all I worry about.
Let me ask you a question. The guy who has more money and is more powerful is Putin. Some people say that he's suffering from cancer. He could be terminal. Do you worry he could do something as stupid as push a nuclear weapons button?
We did it.
Yeah. And if he did something, we couldn't respond because that would be a war.
No, that would be mutual.
Yeah. So he knows what's up.
Assured destruction.
Well, let's hope. I almost called Putin Kanye, but let's hope, Putin, that you don't do that. Gene Shalit's alive? Book him on the show right now, Steve.
96 is good. I'm
book
young
him on the
next
show
to
right
him.
now. Hopefully he does not have Alzheimer's. He could be drooling in a nursing home in Rye, New York, for all we know. Karm, Elon Musk. I'm getting more and more intrigued by him. He came out the other day on an earnings call and said that he sees a potential path with Tesla where Tesla would be worth more than Apple and Saudi Aramco, which is their gas company. Yeah. Is this guy losing his mind?
Bringing it back to Kanye West?
Yeah. Well, he was happy that Kanye was back on Twitter. He's a Kanye supporter.
He's a Kanye supporter because they're both manic depressives, which I never said before. Mm-hmm. And people of, birds of a feather stuck together.
They say that his management style, we had an author on who wrote a book about Elon, says that his management style is impulsive, toxic, cruel. He has complete lack of loyalty or human connection.
Oh, no, he's not manic depressive. He's autistic, they say.
They say that his coldness has not been reserved for just middle management or low-level workers. He's gone through a dozen general counsels in just 15 years. So what is it? What do you think is going on? Is he manic-y? What's his deal?
Right now?
In general.
Well, no. If he's manic depressive, then he's a little manic-y, little depressed.
On to the last story, Karm. I know this one will garner your attention more than Kanye. Have you heard of Amit Ben Igal?
For some reason, the name rings a bell.
He's an Israeli soldier. He was killed in an accident.
Oh, I know the story. It's about his sperm.
He was an only child. He died in service, and his father now wants in vitro fertilization of his son. His father, by the way, is my age, which is scary because he has a 21-year-old son, and I've got a 3-year-old son.
He was an only child.
He said that Amit was everything in my life. I want to be happy again. This is the father. The Army has a responsibility to help me become a grandfather. He can only get this sperm with the permission of the IDF to get in vitro fertilization of his son's sperm into a woman so he can become a grandchild. He was struck in the head by a stone thrown at him by a Palestinian back in 2020. That's how he was killed.
Yes.
Should the IDF allow his sperm to be inseminated?
Wait 1 second. You forgot to add another thing, that many women volunteered to carry the child for him.
I did not know that.
Yes.
You're ahead of the story, Karm.
Well, this is the story I'm interested
Should the
in.
IDF allow him to...
Yes, 100%. Why not?
And this is interesting. This goes back to Ruth Markel. These are like grandparents' rights. Like the grandparent, only the widow or widower, I guess, has
But he
the
wasn't
right.
married, and his girlfriend was very young, and she wasn't ready to do it.
Wow. Ending on a heavy subject. We're going to be right back with 3
it's
questions for
it's
Grandma.
It's a pleasure.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
You have the 3 questions?
Karm, do you see the vast amount of work I do? This doesn't come out of the thin blue air. I am doing this work late at night while you're telling me that I don't do much. That's how these shows get produced.
But you have a recording
Me
of
and
me
Steve
saying?
Cohen. Back to 3 questions for Grandma. First one comes from Vita. Why, when girls are girls, they have nipples, but when they get big, they have big boobs? Vita is 8 years old, my beautiful daughter.
It's excellent. It's hormones,
Hormones?
I think.
And
so.
why does some get bigger than others? Do you want to explain that?
Well, it's genetic too. If the parents had big.
Or look, full circle back to Dan Markel. It could be paid for as well. Katie Magbanua. She got breast implants. On to the next question. This one comes from ZZ Bugs. When building, why do you need to dig to get to the right spot? Why can't you just put the building right on top of the dirt? She wants to know.
We learned that the hard way.
This is a smart question, I thought.
Very, very, very smart question.
Otherwise, you end up like Surfside. May everyone rest in peace.
Yeah, you need the foundation to be in rock and very deep down.
It's an interesting question from a 6-year-old.
But she's brilliant.
Because, like, it doesn't make sense. Why do you just put the building there? But you have to do the work to build the foundation.
Even though in Florida you have no basement, you have to put in a foundation.
And then a 2-parter. This first part is from my 3-year-old son, and the second part comes back from Vita. Judah wants to know, because he saw this with his very own eyes, how can a plane land on water?
Because it lands in the... Why cannot a plane water on water?
Because it's buoyant, and it's...
No, but don't you see the word land?
Yeah. No, he's saying, like, he saw seaplanes that land
okay. He wants to understand how can they do
land.
it.
Yeah. You're making fun of my 3-year-old. He's asking a real question.
Okay.
The second part of that question is from Vita. It's a little more dramatic. Her part B was, if planes crash, do people survive?
Yes. If they're lucky.
Don't say that to the family of People's Express in 1983 at the Florida Everglades. Karm, I guess my final question is this. Are you staying on the podcast, or do I need to hire a Lisa?
No, I don't joke. I never said I would. You know that, by the way, I have a new title. Steve, you will love to do this. You know, I gave myself a new title. He gave me Diva, and I call myself now a working royal.
A working royal. Well, Queen Elizabeth, it's been a pleasure.
That's right.
We'll be back next week. Love you, America.